Hello everyone, and for the first time in a long time, welcome back to Godtear by Steamforged Games. Played this a long time ago, not long after it finally shipped, after being crowdfunded and whatnot 3 years ago at this point. Maybe a little bit less based on when the last video of it went live, before the pandemic and whatnot set in entirely. Decided to return to it for a few reasons. We'll do a quick overview at the start here just to get you up to speed to save you watching those old ones because it's on the old camera and whatnot, so honestly it's not going to look as nice as this. But Godtear is 2 teams of 1 to 3 champions and their followers vying for control of Godtears, which are special objective tiles on the map. It varies where they are based on the scenario you're playing. And over a series of rounds you're competing for control of the ladder that you can just about see over here on the left. If it ends closer to your side of the ladder, you win the victory points for that round. Round 1 is worth 1 point, round 2 is worth 2 points, round 3 is worth 3 points, round 4 is worth 2 points, and the final potential round is worth 1 point. But it's the first person to 5 victory points. And to get back into things today, we're just going to do a 2 hero match or 2 champion match on each side, and the simplest scenario in the book, which is the one they recommend you start with if you're ever learning the game, called Life, which is the one we played the most of, if I remember rightly. Put some scenery on the map to make it look a bit more interesting. That will not affect gameplay. If someone needs to move into a tile or a hex that has scenery in it, we'll just move the scenery out of the way. It's just to make it look a bit more visually interesting, which I also think was a bit of an issue back in the day. But we'll see how it goes. Just revisiting old games because, don't want to be spending money as much at the moment. So it's as good an excuse as any to go back and see something we haven't played for a while. On that note, let's take a look at the 2 sides. So this is going to be Team Blue on the ladder, as denoted by, I'm just using a little blue marker here to show that this is Team Blue. We have Half Tusk on the left here. This is what his flag looks like. You claim Godtears by putting your totem flag or whatever on it, and so that's just what his looks like. It's a giant tusk, and he's got the Froglodytes as his unique followers, and they're unique in the sense that they can walk on Godtears. Most of the other followers in the game, there might be more exceptions now because there has been a few hero releases since I last played, but at least back in the day they were the only ones who could walk on Godtears besides champions themselves. Anyway, there's 4 class types. He is a Guardian. He wants to put down his flag on a Godtear and he wants to hold it for the entire round. He gets bonus points if he does so, and he's being backed up by Lorsan, an Elven Archer lady. That's what her totem flag objective holder, just again to try and use general terms for anyone who's not familiar with how the game plays, that's what her one looks like, and she is joined by 3 Mistwood Rangers, and she is a Slayer, so she wants to kill enemy champions. There's also 2 other classes, one which specialises in killing followers that we'll see in a second, and one which is not being represented today, which gets bonus points for just planting their flag. Doesn't need to last till the end of the round, they just want to plant it. But anyway, that's going to be the blue team. Let's take a look at the other side. And over here we have the red team. So we have Titus, and that is a Maelstrom champion. His banner is this flag here, and he's the type I was talking about. He excels at killing followers, not so much champions, but the people who follow them, and he gets bonus points on the ladder per round for doing that. He's joined by 5 Glory Seekers here. And his teammate, the other champion on the board, is Mournblade. I don't remember if we ever saw him on camera or not. But Mournblade is here. He is the same type of hero as Half Tusk, so he wants to put his flag down and hold it for the round. His is a man who is on fire, and then he's joined by 3 Night Shades as his units. So they each get deployed on one half of the map. They're vying for the Godtears in the centre, and the game is broken into 2 phases, but we'll talk about that in a second. Again, just to bring everybody and myself, honestly, up to speed. So we're set up and good to go for the life scenario. You get the first 2 hexes worth of area on the battle area to deploy your troops. You can have up to 3 small followers in a square. Some champions have large followers, so that's a 1 per squares or per hex as well. Champions obviously take up the entirety of 1 for themselves. So we have Half Tusk here with his Troglodytes. We have Lorsan and her archers right here, and then across the way, bearing down on them, we have Titus right here with his Glory Seekers, and then Mournblade with his Nightshades here. The life scenario, you start with 4 Godtears in the middle. Whoever loses a round gets a dice roll +2 new Godtears to put down adjacent to any current one they wish, so you could use that to your tactical advantage to either block a path or make it easier to put your banner down. It depends. Like the rules for the game, this is what I remember most about it. Super simple, but also with a massive amount of tactical depth, which is the appealing part of it. So just a quick brief on how a turn works. Whoever's going first, which in this case will be Team Red up there, the ladder starts slightly in their favour as a result, because it doesn't sit on the middle line. They do their plot phase first. In the plot phase, their entire team activates. The plot phase is mostly movement, buffs, debuffs. Then Team Blue down here will do the exact same. They'll move, buff, debuff. Although you can do some out of sequence, like some people are capable of attacking in the plot phase, but not many. Then you move into the clash phase and it becomes alternating activations, one per side, either follower or champion, and that's when people hit each other. And we'll talk about that as we play. Rolling these dice, super simple dice as well. I think there's only one double on each die. Yeah, one double on each die, maybe three singles, one double, and 2 blanks. There we are. So that's what's on a die. So we'll talk about what each unit does, moving, plotting, etc. And with that, let's get started. So it was the Glory Seekers and Titus who went first in the plot phase for Team Red. The Glory Seekers used a ability called Roar Bow. They target a champion within range 2 of them, and the champion can move 2 hexes, which Titus has done to move forwards here. And then the Glory Seekers just did a movement action. Their movement in the plot phases too. It's important to pay attention to that because in different phases units usually move at a different speed. So they can only move 2, so the 3 pile shuffled up to there, 2 piles shuffled up to there, and that move that they made Titus do does not count as one of the 2 things he's allowed to do in his turn in the plot phase, which is what's going to happen now. Titus did a move as his first activation. He moves 2 hexes as well, so he came forwards and that put him adjacent to the Godtears, and because he had nothing else he could do in the plot phase with his other action, he did a claim. So you put down that particular hero champion's flag, they have now claimed that, and just for the act of doing that, they gain 1 step on the ladder towards their favour. If they were a hero of a different type, it might have been 2 points. If they were the Shaper heroes, I think they're called, the kind we're not doing here today. But either way, that can be stepped on by enemy champions to get rid of it. If it lasts till the end of the turn, it can score extra. Again, different champion types excel at that. For instance, Half Tusk and Mornblade. But that is him and his followers done. Mornblade and his Nightshades activate next. The Nightshades activated first and came forward 1 hex. They're very slow, the undead units tend to be. So they only step forward 1 whole hex, and then for their other action they used a skill called Careful Master. If Mornblade is within 3 hexes, they buff him by giving him a dodge token, which is what's there. It's going to sit on his card just so we don't clutter up the battlefield, but boons and blights all have space on their cards, and they have to be used when the relevant skill is used. So the next time someone tries to attack Mornblade, he will get 1 extra to his dodge, is what that means, which is just as well because he's not exactly very agile. Mornblade did a move. He only moves 2, so he hobbled forwards 2 hexes, but then he used Grave Summons, which is an ability he has in the plot phase. He makes a claim action, but he can do it within range 3 rather than adjacent, so he has also plopped down his banner right next to Titus's, gaining them another point on the ladder. And if it is still there at the end of the turn, when you remove all banners, because of his hero type or champion type as a guardian, it would be +1 on top of the usual, but we'll talk about that when we get to the end phase. So we come down to the other end of the table for Team Blue to now do their plot phase. They all activate in a row, and the first one selected was Half Tusk and his Froglodyte, specifically the ladder. So his followers activated, they only move 1 hex, so they moved to here, but then they used an ability they have in this phase called Hop, where you can place them within 2 hexes, so they bounced, and have all landed over there, not doing anything else with their turn. Half Tusk stomped up 2 hexes and can't move anymore in this phase, so he's going to use an ability called Footwork. He targets an ally within 2 hexes and gives them a dodge. So he's going to give the Froglodytes there a dodge in case they get attacked in the clash phase. The Mistwood Rangers for Lorsan activated, they moved up 2 hexes and then used an ability on themselves, which is just a self buff called Blur. It also gives them a dodge token, and I think the elven units in the game all kind of rely on dodging. Their armour is not great, so that will help them immensely. That'll mean the next time they're attacked they count as dodge 4 instead of 3, so again we'll see how that works in the clash phase, but it'll help them out a lot. Lorsan also moved up 2 hexes, and then she used an ability she has called Field Instruction. In the plot phase, targets a friendly within 2 hexes, which her archers are, and gives them an attack boon. So the next time they roll attack dice, they will have 1 extra thrown in. In general, the game works in that you roll to hit, then roll to damage, on the assumption that what you're doing is a damage thing. Some abilities just need to land the hit, and then it inflicts, other stuff. With that though, that is the completion of the plot phase. It's back over to Team Red for their first activation, but now we alternate activations. It can be a champion or a follower, and vice versa, but it's back and forth, and this is where the hitting and dice rolling starts. Titus was the first activation of the Clash phase. He moves 2 in this phase as well. He did so by walking forward, standing on one of the unused Godtears. You can't beat your banner down in the Clash phase, it's worth pointing out, but he's just blocking in general. And then he attacked the followers, the Froglodytes, because that's who he as a Maelstrom champion wants to kill. Doesn't really care about other champions, he just wants to kill who's following them. So he did an attack called Piercing Strike. It's range 1, you roll 5 dice to try and beat their dodge, and it can target up to 2 models in the same hex, and you roll 6 damage for the dice, the damage roll with the dice. So they had an extra dodge on their first effort. Their base dodge is 2, so they had dodge 3. You have to equal or beat in this game, and unfortunately for them, the extra dodge did not help. He hit the first one, rolled 6 dice for damage, and then you subtract 3 because that's what their defense is, and he still managed to kill one of them. That would normally get 1 step on the ladder, but because he's a Maelstrom champion, that gets 2, 1 extra. He then got to hit the other one in the tile, did the same thing, and also succeeded. So that is 2 out of the 3 Froglodytes dead, and 4 points on the ladder. It's looking very comfortable that Team Red is getting the first victory point this round, most likely. They can do a recruit action, or a reinforce, I've forgotten offhand what it's called now, to get back the dead Froglodytes, or if they're entirely wiped out, they can still come back by doing a similar action. But it is a bit rough to lose 2 of them, and that was the door, so back in a second. Apologies for that abrupt interruption, but anyway, Team Blue got their first activation. Half Tusk activated, and did he move? He moves 2 in the Clash phase. He moved on to the objective tile here, staring down Titus. He then attacked with an ability called One Punch. Have to attack a target within range 1, you roll 6 dice for the hit effect, and then only 4 dice for the damage. The hit landed, but Titus has a dodge of 3, but he also has a defense of 3, so no damage done. But if he uses One Punch and it lands the hit, which it did, he can then use an attack he has called 2 Punch as a bonus action. So he did 2 Punch, you only roll 4 dice for that hit effect, but you roll 5 dice for the damage. So it's a bit harder to land, but if it does land, you roll more damage dice. And he did very well with his damage dice. Oh, he is actually also allowed to move 1 hex, which I didn't notice as a hit effect. Again, he did land his hit. Boy, did he. And then the damage roll, he rolled 6 in total. Titus's 3 defense takes 3 of that away, but he still took 3 wounds, so that is him on 2 health remaining. But with that extra move, he's going to walk on to... Well, actually no, it would make much more sense to walk on to Mornblade's banner, because if that was still there at the end of the turn, it would score even more points because of the champion type he is. So yeah, he's going to use that to move over there, step on that banner, and crush it, even if that does kind of put him in the firing line. So Titus is close to death now, but it's back over to Team Red to pick someone else to activate. Kind of a holding pattern activation for the red side. Titus's Glory Seekers activated. They moved 2 hexes as an action and didn't do anything with their other action. They have 2 different kinds of attacks they can do in the Clash phase. They both are range 1, couldn't get quite close enough. But Mornblade and in the Nightshades didn't want to activate yet for reasons, so had to just kind of waste the Glory Seekers this turn. So it's back over to Team Blue. So Lorsan activated and stayed where she was because she wanted to try and kill Titus. Killing a champion is worth 5 on the ladder. However, if you are a Slayer champion type, which she is, you get +1 bonus. So it would have been worth 6. But it's only the first round, so... well, we'll talk about that in a second. What she did was, she started with Piercing Shot, range 3, 5 dice to hit, and there's no damage roll. If it hits, you just do 1 true damage, which is exactly what she did, leaving Titus on 1 health remaining. She then tried to use Snipe, which is also range 3, massive 8 dice for hit chance, so it's basically guaranteed barring anything catastrophic happening. You only roll 4 dice for damage though, and that's the remnants of the damage roll right there. In fact, she only equaled his defense, so when you subtract it, he has 3 defense, no damage done. So Titus lived on 1 health, but that's not necessarily a bad thing in Godtear, because the first round is only worth 1 victory point. They're almost certainly going to get it because there's no way to remove Titus's banner there, which also gives 5 victory points in the end phase, or 4. I think it's 4. I don't quite remember. Hang on. 4, sorry, 4. It goes up to 5 if you are a Guardian. But that would be enough almost to sway killing him this turn anyway. Starting the next turn with him super close to death means he's an easy mark for Lorsan and her archers. So it behooves them, wait now, get him next turn, guarantee the win next turn for the more victory points. So kind of accidentally, perfect result there. The Nightshades activated, step forwards 1 whole hex. They're not very fast as previously mentioned. As a result, they couldn't attack Half Tusk, he's too far away, so they used a buff they have in this phase called Depths of Sorrow, giving themselves a hit boon, so the next time they have to do a hit roll, they'll have 1 extra die thrown in, barring any debuffs they get from anyone in the future. But they're done, so they just have Mornblade left to go. For Team Blue, they've still got the Mistwood Arch to choose from, and the 1 surviving Froglodyte. So the Froglodyte's activated and started with the rally action, a recruit action rather, which brings back one of their number adjacent to the champion they belong to, so one of them has respawned over here next to Half Tusk. Then the one that was surviving was selected. He used Tongue Lash, range 2. Depending on the number of Froglodytes that are on the tile taking part, you roll more dice. That goes for followers in general. Generally, they just want to team up together, because otherwise they've got no chance of piercing defenses or whatnot. But this just required a hit, and if you only have the 1 Froglodyte, it's still 5 dice. He did it on the Glory Seekers, have dodged 3, he landed it. Hit effect, move target 1 hex towards the Froglodyte. So he pulled one of them right here. As far as I can tell, it is just 1, not everyone on the tile. If that is wrong, by all means correct me, because I haven't played this game for 3 or 2 years, so I might be forgetting some stuff. I think that's how it works. That's mostly just to get him out of position for 1, and also kind of block the big cluster of 3 coming forwards to hit harder. So Mornblade was the last activation for Team Red in the first battle round, and the reason he was saving himself was because if Titus had gone down, during his turn he can make Titus come back, which saves him wasting an action doing so next turn. But as it turns out, that hasn't happened yet. It still might, I guess. But he walked forward, he had a maximum of 2, he went adjacent to Half Tusk, and then used Soul Cleave, range 3, 5 dice to hit, 5 dice to wound. There is the wound roll right there, and Half Tusk has 3 defense, so he fully blocked it, and it did nothing. So it is over to Lorsan's Mistwood Rangers to end off the turn proper. So the archers stayed where they were and just used fire. That's just them firing arrows as a barrage. With all of them being on the same tile, it's range 3 as well. They're rolling 5 dice to hit, 5 dice to wound, because they're all combining their arrows. They shot at the poor single Glory Seeker, managed to get through his 3 dodge, 3 armor, and have taken him out. And then they used aim, because they didn't want to move any closer. Aim gives them a extra to hit die for the next time they choose to do that. Oh, you know what? I forgot they had 1 extra bonus damage die. Even though they didn't need it, it still gets used up. So they would have had 6 dice for damage. That gives them 1 step on the ladder for a follower dying. It's probably not going to make a difference, but we'll cover that in a moment. So here is the ladder. The middle line is right there. It is very in the red team's quarter, and at the end of the phase you remove banners, but as you do so they're worth 4 to the team they belong to, unless they happen to be a Guardian, which Half Tusk and Mornblade are, just as a reminder, and then you would get an extra 1 for a total of 5. But it's just Titus's banner, so that's 4 points, 1, 2, 3, 4. It is very much Team Red, so they have gained 1 of the 5 victory points needed to win, and that is how a turn plays out. This is the turn 2 one, which is also worth 2. And we'll go a bit faster now because we've seen how a turn has played out. The loser of the turn, though, gets to pick whether or not they go first or second in battle round 2. And because we're playing the life scenario, they have to put down some extra hexes, so we'll cover that as well. Be back in a moment. So as we begin round 2, here's what the board is now looking like, with Team Blue deciding to go first in the plot phase, giving them the slight bonus advantage on the ladder to start with. And they rolled a 1, add on 2, so there's 3 new objective hexes and they've been placed down a line there, kind of cutting off half the table and also putting it right next to Lorsan in case she decides to do a claim action. So with that, we'll do the plot phase for this side first. So as I say, we're going to go a little bit faster, especially in the plot phase, now that we've kind of walked through a turn slowly. Lorsan activated, stayed where she was. Her first action was to do a claim, giving her one step on the ladder for her team. Then she used a Fairy Fire, range 3, 5 dice to hit, and if it hits, you give them a negative to their next defense. So it did indeed land against Titus, so Titus is going to count as defense 2 for the next attack that hits him in the clash phase. Then her Mistwood Rangers activated. They moved forwards 1 hex of a potential 2, and then also tried to use Fairy Fire. They shot at the lone Glory Seeker here, 5 dice with all 3 of them doing it, and they managed to whiff. They rolled 2, which was less than their dodge of 3, so they failed to do the debuff, unfortunately. For Half Tusk, he moved back 1 objective hex and then did a claim action, putting down his tooth, or whatever, tusk, presumably, gaining 1 point on the ladder for that. His Froglodytes then activated. They did a recruit to bring back the last fallen one currently. He respawned right there. They're not doing anything else with their action. They could have done hop to maybe like bounce over here and congregate on a hex that's a little bit further away from Titus, but they've opted not to. Kind of like that one is blocking to protect Lorsan there, and if Titus manages to get one of them, that shouldn't be too bad in the long run as long as he goes down. So that is their plot phase done. Over to Team Red. Glory Seekers in the plot phase started by doing Roar of Battle again to move Titus 1 hex, so he crushed Half Tusk's banner. Then they just moved up forwards, they moved 1, and then the solo square hex one moved 2. Then it was over to Titus himself. We've only done one of his abilities, we're going to do the other one on camera just to show how it works. So he used Challenge. You target someone within 2 hexes, they gain 2 blights of your choice, but then Titus gains 1 blight of their choice. He inflicted the defense blight and the dodge blight, which you can't quite see, or you can just about see on Lorsan down here. She inflicted a movement debuff on him, which is immediately being used up because for his other action he is initiating a move. Normally he would be move 2, that means he comes down to move 1, but that is enough that he's immediately just stepping on her banner as well to crush it and deny those 4 points at the end of the turn. So even if he's about to go down, he did good work there. And to quickly cover the other half of Team Red, the Nightshades activated. They move forwards 1 and can't really do anything else. Mournblade is using forward minions. He can target his Nightshades as long as they're within range 4, and he forces them to move 2 or up to 2. They can't walk on objective hexes, so they're just being there. For his other action, he's using his Grave Summons. He makes a claim action, but he doesn't need to do it adjacent if he doesn't want to, that is. It can be within range 3, and it's just a claim, and he is just going to put it adjacent, so it's just right there next to him and also next to Half Tusk, and that's 1 point towards them. And with that, we're into the clash phase with Team Blue picking first activation. So perhaps unsurprisingly, it was Lorsan who got the turn started. She attacked with, what was it called again, Piercing Shot, which is the one 5 dice hit, and as long as it hits it does 1 guaranteed true damage. She took out Titus's last health. That would normally be 4 steps on the ladder, but because she is a Slayer champion, she gets that +1 for a total of 5. Titus will still get a turn, it's just they only get 1 action because his first action is to rally himself and get back on his feet, because these people are demigods almost, so they don't truly die. For her other action, she then sniped and took out the lone Glory Seeker over here, so he is gone from the table, and that was 1 more step on the ladder as well. So it's very much in Team Blue's corner, but now it's over to a red activation. Well, Mournblade activated, moved forwards 2 hexes right to here, and is then using Raised Dead. Range 3, all friendly champions within range can make a rally action, so Titus is getting right back onto his feet outside of his turn, so he will in fact now get 2 turns, his normal 2 actions rather. So Mournblade, I guess, decided it was more important to get him up than do something else with his turn. But we'll see whether or not that was the right choice as we go on. The Mistwood Rangers activated, stayed exactly where they were, and thanks to Mournblade moving so close, they immediately just fired on him because it's range 3. Mournblade is weird for a champion in that he does only have 1 health, which is what most followers have, but he keeps coming back and he isn't worth as many steps on the ladder if he dies. They got through his boosted to 3 dodge, but the 5 damage dice were not enough, if you can see the result there, to pierce his massive 4 defense. They got exactly spot on, minus his 4 armor equals 0. So then after that they did another aim to just give themselves that aim boost back for their next turn. The Nightshades activated and used Death's Door, all three of them attacking simultaneously, which means 5 dice to hit and 5 damage dice. They did it on this poor Froglodyte right here. Also, if they had done a recruit action before doing it, it would get extra hit and damage dice, but that isn't relevant here. Either way though, the damage roll was there. It was actually a fantastic damage roll right there. And the Froglodyte is dead for 1 point on the ladder. More importantly though, for their other action, they're just moving right next to Half Tusk, and the reason that's important is because of their passive called Death Grip. Enemy models that make an advance action while they're adjacent to a Nightshade have speed 0 during that advance action, aka you can't move because they're grabbing you, which means unless Half Tusk is able to take them out with his first action, he won't be able to walk onto and crush Mornblade's banner. Oh boy, Half Tusk had a fun turn. He's just fun in general. He started by doing one punch, but rather than doing it on the Nightshades, he did it on Mornblade, and he actually managed to get through his, well, getting past his dodge is easy, getting past his 4 armor to do exactly 1 damage, which is enough to take him out, but then his Undying roll kicks in, which reads when Mornblade is knocked out, he's worth 1 step on the ladder instead of 4, although Slayers would still get their bonus 1. When an enemy is knocked out, he can immediately make a rally action, so if anyone else dies this turn, he'll just get back up. But that is important because he did land his hits, which means he was allowed to make a free 2-punch. He did 2-punch on the Mornblades. It ended up having an appalling, that wasn't the hit roll, the damage roll, so it didn't do any damage, but because it hit, he's allowed to move 1 hex, which is not an advance action. It's part of that attack, so he can just shuffle himself up here and smush Mornblade's banner like that to deny it. And he still has another action, but he's done everything he can do. The only other thing he can do is regenerate 2 wounds, but he's not got any wounds. So he's done. That was just a punch followed by a bonus punch, and he managed to do some really good work. Well, the recently rallied Titus activated, and thanks to having 2 actions, he was able to do a lot of stuff. He started by doing a sweeping slash. He can target up to 2 different hexes within range 1, 6 dice to hit, 5 dice for damage. He took out the Froglodyte that was there, and in doing so Mornblade got back on his feet, and that was worth 2 steps on the ladder as well. And then for his other action, he did a piercing strike, 5 dice to hit, 6 dice. Oh sorry, but first to cover, I forgot he also hit Lorsan with the sweeping slash, and she had a debuff to her dodge. Her dodge is normally a massive 4, but that brought it down to a 3. Hit her for 4 damage, because she only has 1 armor, which was I was kind of forgetting that. Then he did a piercing strike on her, 5 dice to hit, 6 dice for damage. Another 5 got through, so unfortunately she has 6 health in total and he just did 9. So she is down, and that means 4 points on the ladder for Team Red. That is Titus' activation, so it's just over to his Glory Seekers now to see what they do to end off the second turn. Oh, I was forgetting that the Froglodytes hadn't activated. They did a recruit action to bring 1 back, which was put here in a hex, and then just did a movement action, so the one that was in a little bit of danger from Titus down here. 1, 2, 3. Oh wait, he was next to the... Or is it only champions are affected by that? No, enemy models. So his advance would have been 0 actually, so he couldn't have moved. So there isn't really anything else they want to do, because they can do some forced movement of the enemy, or if there was a friendly banner they could move it around to keep it safe. So sadly no, he's just going to have to stay down there to inevitably be murdered by Titus next turn, and they're just using the 1 action to recruit one of their fellows. Now it's over to the Glory Seekers to end off the turn. So no matter what the Glory Seekers do, they can't stop Team Blue winning, but this round that is, but they kept it real close. They did a move and then did a surround pound, which would have additional dice and damage if they were surrounded, and they have abilities to help that happen, but no, they were all in the same hex, so it was 4 accuracy, 4 damage. They got through the dodge, which is the hard part with elves. Only 1 armor as well, so 1 Mistwood Ranger went down. Oh, you know what, I forgot they had a dodge boon. They only matched the dodge, they didn't exceed it. I remember that precisely, so in fact, never mind, they did not land the hit, they did not gain that point. Forgot that. The boon is gone now though, they've just got the accuracy boon left. And that is the end of the round. So at the end of round 2 you can see the token is here. It is in the Blues' favour by 2, or by 1, because the middle line is here. So they gain these points, and they have gained 2 of the 5 required. So if they manage to take the next round, they will just win the game. If Team Red do, they're still 1 away, so we'll have to do 1 more turn beyond that. And let's go to the plot phase after we put down some new objective hexes, of course. So here is the overview of the battlefield as we start the 3rd round, worth 3 victory points. 3 new hexes in total were put down there by Team Red. and they are going first, so we'll be over to their plot phase now to see what they do. The Nightshades went first in the plot phase. They used Careful Master to give Mornblade a dodge buff. Didn't do anything else with their other action. They're quite happy standing there to annihilate the movement stat of the surrounding enemies. Mornblade himself, he moved just to block by standing in that hex there. There's the dodge buff he was given by his minions. And then he used Grave Summons, although, well, he just did a claim action really, because it's right next to him. He put down his banner right here for 1 point on the ladder. Titus started his turn by immediately planting his banner for 1 step on the ladder right there, and then he just moved 2 hexes to help Mornblade guard his, because his is worth a total of 5 if it survives the entire turn, and that could cinch it for them. The Glory Seekers did a recruit to bring back 1 fallen Glory Seeker who spawned in right here. They then made use of Outflank. It's a 6 dice to hit, and if it lands, place each Glory Seeker that is adjacent to the target in a hex adjacent to the target. So basically it's their ability to surround the person they're next to, so that when you get into a clash phase they get those lovely bonus hit and damage dice to pick on the poor archers. So that is their entire plot phase done. Over to Team Blue. The Froglodytes did a recruit action to get back 1 of their number, and then made use of Hop, which is not an advance, so they can still move even though they're adjacent to Nightshades. This one hopped, pardon me, over here. The one that was up here next to Half-Tusk plus the respawned one, they just hopped 1 over there. Then, oh, and I should mention, I forgot Half-Tusk's passive called Fighting Fit. If he's at full health, all his attacks you get +2 accuracy dice. I don't think he's missed yet. To wind rolls can still fail, but I don't think he's missed yet. So I don't think it's mattered, but that is the passive for him. Lorsan could have been moving 1 hex after doing wounds. She was mostly wanting to stay where she was, so that doesn't really matter either, but did forget that. Been forgetting passives in general, besides Mornblades, to be honest, but those 2 could have made a slight difference. But for Half-Tusk himself, he put down his banner for 1 point on the ladder, and then gave himself footwork, which, oh sorry, no, he can't give himself footwork. That is not a self buff. That is a friendly within 2 hexes. In that case, he will do nothing. He could technically make the hit roll of the Nightshades worse. It's not really going to matter, but you know, we'll roll for that, and if he gets it, they'll have minus hit chance. There's no harm in not doing that. Right now they have a boon to it, in fact, so it would remove the boon if it overwrites it. Simple enough for Lorsan. She rallied, got back on her feet, and then immediately planted her banner, so that gives her 1 step on the ladder for her side. But that's her entire turn. And then her archers, they used Blur to give themselves a dodge boon, because I have a feeling they'll be needing it. And then they fired with Fairy Fire into this Glory Seeker and hit, giving the unit the negative to defense for the next attack levied at them. So now it's back over to Team Red for their first activation for the clash phase of a very definitive turn. So the Glory Seekers got the round started, however, just between takes, totally remembered a boon that you're supposed to have when you manage to successfully take out an enemy champion that we have not been doing. You're allowed to move the champion up to 2 hexes. I don't think it would have made a massive difference with how things have proceeded, but it is a thing you can take advantage of strategically speaking. Because we haven't done it for 2 rounds, we're going to continue not doing it, but going forwards, that is something that was forgotten. Apologies, again, returning to the game after 2 and a bit years, or almost 3 years. So it's been a while, but just pointing it out on camera, that is something that was forgotten. The Glory Seekers, they used a recruit to get back their missing member, and plopped him down right there. When they do a recruit, they're allowed to move 2 hexes, but they were right where they wanted to be. They did a surround pound, +1 hit and damage die for each other hex adjacent to a target that contains 1 or more Glory Seekers. So we're getting 3 more, basically, turning a 4-5 into a 7-8. Needless to say, it was enough to, despite their dodge boon, take 1 of them out for 1 step on the ladder and 1 smug elf off the table. So we're sticking down here, and Lorsan activated first for Team Blue, and we also are seeing our first ultimate of the game. Every champion has a once per game ultimate that does various things depending on who you're playing as. Lorsan's though was called Death Blow. Range 3 hexes, and from where she started right there, she could reach Mornblade. 6 dice to hit, and if it hits, she does 2 true damage. So she did that on Mornblade, who only has 1 health, hit him for 2 and did take him out. He's only worth 1 step on the ladder when he dies, as previously mentioned, but she gets an extra bonus 1 for being a Slayer, because she wants to kill champions, so plus 2 overall. She then would have got to move 1 hex, but all she did with her turn anyway was move, and she has 3 to work with. So she moved 3, or really just 2 in total, to step onto here and crush Titus's banner so it won't survive the turn. Mornblade will get back up if anyone else dies, any of the blue side dies, but still worth doing, I think, to hopefully force either him to only get 1 action, or to force Titus to do something different than perhaps he planned. So Titus activated, and this is where the intricacies of Godtear come into effect, because you've really got to try and plan out your moves. With how the Glory Seekers have positioned themselves in order to do extra damage against the Mistwood Rangers, he couldn't move to them and attack, and then also do the other thing he desperately needed to do, which was what he did, which was move 2 from here to crush Half-Tusk's banner. He did that because it's worth 1 more than Lorsan's, but he can't be in 2 places at once, and he can't get at anyone to kill them. So what he did instead, apologies for the dog barking in the background, what he did instead was use a piercing strike on Half-Tusk, and wasn't even able to pierce his dodge. Didn't even get to the defense roll. Doesn't do anything on hit. So Titus had a whiff of a turn, and that could end up costing him the game right there. Well, there is mistakes on both sides now. The Frogdite's activated, and Diddy Tongue Lash hit effect. Well, it's because only one of them was doing it. It was only 5 dice, but they were hitting one of the Nightshades who only have dodge 2, so it did hit. Hit effect moved target up to 1 hex towards the Frogdite that did it. Oh, sorry, it was 2 of them, not one of them. It was this hex here. Either way, though, it moves the target, and as far as I'm remembering, unless said otherwise, it means 1 model on the hex, not all of them. The plan was to kind of tug them this way, and then Half-Tusk could move freely. He still might be able to if he does enough damage to kill 2 of them now instead of 3 of them, but that wasn't quite thought out fully, and they don't really have anything else to do with their other action. They could have moved his banner with their tongue, but there wasn't anywhere that would have been safe from Titus's move range. That was also an objective hex, so yeah, their turn was a bit of a whiff. They are done. So who's left for... Oh, it's just Mornblade, who has only 1 action because they have to stand up. Oh, I was forgetting that the Nightshades themselves had not activated yet, so all they did was move right back. That was done in the wrong order, as there isn't anything else they want to do besides Depths of Sorrow in order to give themselves an accuracy boon, getting rid of the negative they were sitting on for quite some time, but that's them done. So that means Mornblade will be ending off the turn after the Mistwood Rangers do something. Oh, no, we still have Half-Tusk as well, but he's kind of stuck. It's going to be super close who claims this round, so these are important actions for all these people left. So the Mistwood Rangers activated, they tried to fire into one of the Glory Seekers. If they'd taken them out, I think that would have swung this round for them. Unfortunately, with only 2 of them surviving, they're only rolling 4 hit dice, they couldn't even hit them. Missed on the dodge. So instead, for their second action, because they don't have any other attack they can do, and you can't do the same action twice in a turn, they just move 3 down here next to Lorsan to hopefully help protect. But that is them done, and that could also be super costly for the game. So now it's over to Mornblade, and then back over to Half-Tusk to take us to the end of the very, very important round 3. Well, Mornblade had to stand up, so he had 1 action. Well, he had to rally is the correct term. He doesn't want to move because on the off chance Half-Tusk is able to do a move of his own, he has to stay there in order to block him just walking onto his banner, or getting close enough to be a threat anyway. Actually, I don't think he would be able to reach. Either way, he did a Soul Cleave, range 3, 5 dice to hit, 5 dice for damage. He actually did really well. He managed to do 3 wounds to Half-Tusk, who is pretty tanky, he's got 7 health. But that means his fighting fit doesn't take effect. He doesn't have 2 extra accuracy dice thrown in, which might hinder what he's able to do. I guess we'll find out, because it's over hit to him to end the turn. Well, Half-Tusk, the big frost giant there, he did his 1 punch, he landed his hit, but no damage got through. But thanks to the hit landing, he was allowed to do 2 punches as a bonus action. That also hit, and he did take out one of the Nightshades for 1 step on the ladder there, and that could be important. For his other action, because he can't do the same again, and he can't move away because of the Nightshades that lived, he did regenerate on himself. He removes 2 wounds, so he just has 1 on him now. That's still enough that he isn't getting his fighting fit, but we'll see if that matters in a second, because we're at the end of the round, and there's 2 banners left on the field. Lorsan's, she's just a Slayer, so that is 4 points. 1, 2, 3, 4. Mornblade is on the map. That would normally be 4, but because he is a guardian, he gets +1, so it's actually 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh! Okay, let's show you the ladder. So hopefully if everything's been getting tallied correctly, all the kills, etc. But again, apologies if there has been any mistakes returning to the game for the first time in a long time. But assuming everything has just been added up correctly there, with Mornblade getting the 1 extra point, it is just shy of what was needed to tip this in their favour. That is the dividing line right there. So it was in Team Blue, meaning that they get the 3 victory points, giving them the 5, meaning that they have won today. So here is your victors today. That was fun returning to Godtear. It has been a bit, and it is, as I remembered, it is very, very tactical and just very fun to play from a strategic layer. Not 100% sure on how great it is to watch. Tried to spruce it up a little bit with some scenery on the map today. Hopefully that helped. But at its core, it's just a really, really tight set of rules that are very fun to play. This would make a great digital competitive game, I think, honestly. But it was fun to get it on the tabletop again, roll some dice. Nice and simple. Hopefully not too much done incorrectly. But I hope you give it a chance and give it a watch. And if you are interested in seeing more, please do let me know, since I'm kind of going back to older games I've been covering since the channel started, and just revisiting them. There'll be others, I'm sure. But let me know, and if you would like to support what we do here on the channel, please do consider pressing that thanks button, becoming a channel member, or just any other ways you can show support, like checking out the Patreon. It is greatly appreciated and is reinvested in the channel. There will be more Godtear in some form, not necessarily more matches like this, it just depends. But also keep in mind, just if you are totally fresh and new, there are some really old videos you can go back and watch. There's a few, including an unboxing of the Kickstarter tier they did. I've forgotten the name of it offhand. And standard side games are 3 a side, and you can mix and match hero types. You don't have to, like, you can have all Slayers if you want. So there's a bunch of ways to play the game. I'm not sure if they're all effective, but there's definitely a bunch of ways to play the game. Anyway, I am rambling, so I'm going to do my outro now. Thank you very much for watching. Ta-ta for now.